It is now my honor to present this evening's keynote speaker, Alison Centofante. Alison is a child advocacy innovator, in-demand public speaker, activist, and writer with over 10 years of experience speaking on abortion, marriage, human dignity, and religious freedom. Alison has been featured on Fox News, ABC, NPR, the Christian Broadcasting Network, and other national and international media outlets. Her work and expert perspective has been published in Yahoo News, Business Insider, BuzzFeed, National Review Online, Fox News, World Magazine, Red Alert Politics, and The Federalist. Alison most recently served as the Director of External Affairs at Live Action, a nonprofit organization with the largest digital footprint in the global pro-life movement. Prior to that, Alison served as Director of Alliance Relations at Alliance Defending Freedom, a global legal organization committed to protecting religious freedom, free speech, marriage, family, parental rights, and the sanctity of life. She started her work in Washington, D.C. as Communications Director at the Concerned Women for America, the nation's largest public policy women's organization. And Alison was named to Red Alert's Politics 30 Under 30 and Christianity Today's Reader's Choice 33 Under 33. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present tonight's keynote speaker, Alison Centofante. Please join me in a warm welcome.
I'll need this mic to go down. Thank you. I was not blessed with height. Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. And before I get started, I just want to give a big round of applause to the organizers and the true VIPs of the evening, these amazing women that have chosen life that are here tonight. Let's give them a round of applause. I was able to go to the residence today and meet the leadership of MiraVia, to hang out with the girls. We had lunch, some of them and their babies, and I just was so encouraged. I'm so inspired by what has been set up here in North Carolina for girls that were like me in college who are choosing life. It's so amazing. I think back at my time in college. I went to Liberty University, not far from here, and we started a group called Rose. I'm the oldest of 3 girls, so if anyone here is the oldest of girls or has an oldest girl, you know we have to get involved in everything, and we just move in and we start taking over things. So I was on student government. I said, my friends and I wanted to do something to help with abortion. Rose stood for Reclaiming Others' Sacred Existence, and we decided we would have a week dedicated to the pro-life mission. I want to tell you about that and how that kind of started my trajectory into the movement. But before I begin, I'd like to show a quick video to set the stage this evening of who we're speaking up for and who you have all empowered others to choose life for. So if we have that video ready, I would love to introduce you to Olivia.
This is Olivia. Though she has yet to greet the outside world, she has already completed an amazing journey. This is the moment that life begins. A new human being has come into existence. At fertilization, her gender, ethnicity, hair color, eye color, and countless traits are already determined. She begins to implant in the uterus about 1 week after fertilization. Her cells organize into what we call an embryo. At 3 weeks and 1 day, just 22 days after fertilization, Olivia's heartbeat can be detected. The buds of her arms and legs appear by 4 weeks. She begins to move between 5 and 6 weeks with both spontaneous and reflexive movements. At 6 weeks from fertilization, her brain activity can be recorded and bone formation begins. She can bring her hands together at 7.5 weeks, and separate fingers and toes emerge. She can also begin to hiccup. At the beginning of the 9th week, Olivia will have grown from a single cell into nearly 1 billion cells, and she is now called a fetus. She will suck her thumb and swallow, grasp an object, touch her face, sigh and stretch. At 11 weeks, she is playing in the womb, moving her body and exploring her environment. Her taste bud cells have matured by week 12 but are still scattered throughout her mouth. Her mother will first sense Olivia's movements between 14 and 18 weeks, an event called quickening. Beginning at 18 weeks, ultrasounds show speaking movements in her voice box. Around 20 weeks, with a lot of help, babies have survived outside the womb. At 27 weeks, her eyes are responding to light. She can recognize her parents' voices and will even recognize lullabies and stories. Olivia has gone on an amazing journey during these last 9 months. She will soon signal to her mother that it is time for delivery and greet the outside world.
Thank you. Olivia was created, birthed in partnership with some of the world's leading pro-life OBGYNs and some of the best graphic designers that we have in the movement. And I'm really proud of it. And I wanted to show you that tonight because Olivia is each of us. And Olivia is who we are fighting for today. When I was in college, we invited Norma McCorvey to come speak. Norma McCorvey is Jane Roe in Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court case that legalized abortion and changed history. It changed the fate of over 60 million little boys and girls like Olivia just in our country alone, and has hurt and left countless women without their children and men with lost fatherhood. And Norma comes to Liberty University and she is sharing how she's pro-life. Some of you may know this because you've been in the movement, but as a college student, I thought this was so powerful. This young girl, Norma McCorvey, found herself in an unplanned pregnancy and was used really as a vehicle for very advocacy-oriented attorneys to push pro-abortion policies all the way up to the Supreme Court. Now, Norma, praise God, chose life. She actually placed her daughter for adoption. She never went through with an abortion, which many people don't know. And later in life, she came to know the Lord. I believe a local Flip Benham baptized her. And she went around the country and she talked about how this court case in her name was just the scourge of her conscience and that she would dedicate her life to the pro-life movement. And as Norma was speaking in front of thousands of college students, like I'm here speaking to you today, we worked it out so that the students would bring roses. And each rose signified 1,000 children that had been lost to abortion. And students wore black that day and came and laid a rose at the stage as she shared her story. And you guys can do the math. With each rose representing 1,000 children lost, to try to get to 60 million children. The roses didn't stop. She spoke for an hour, and the roses just kept coming. And it was a turning point in my life to realize what a human rights crisis we are in, and to try and be a part of the solution. Now, this was just me as a college student. We tried to educate and empower and have a speaker come. But it got really close to home when I went home for Christmas break. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. I think I told you that. I'm a total daddy's girl. And I don't mean to say that like he spoiled me. He did not. But I adore him. And you'll learn why as I share with you his story. But he sat me down my junior year in college. And he said, he has tears in his eyes. And my dad is rough. He's a construction worker. And I've never seen him cry. And I thought, what? And he said, Al, I completely forgot until you started working in this pro-life stuff. But before I got saved, I was dating a girl, and she got pregnant, and we went, and she got an abortion. And he's got tears in his eyes, and he's weeping. And I remember going, okay. And he goes, I just am so sorry. I found her number, I called her, I apologized. She's married with kids, she didn't want to hear from me, but I wanted to confess to you and your mom and to her that I didn't know what we know now. And I'll never forget, guys, he said to me, Alison, they told us that was a clump of cells. That's what they said. And that's why we made the decision we did. And he cried, and I realized in that moment, this is not just a woman's rights issue. This is affecting men as well. And it's likely still affecting, this woman. Thankfully, she was able to have children. But it got close to home. And since that conversation, other people in my family and extended family have shared stories with me that have moved me to stay really focused on this. Because you guys know there's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot to be concerned about. But this issue of abortion, the chance for life, being on this great co-mission with Christ to bring creation into the world and fulfill the order that he set up, that's under attack every single day. And so in a room of this size, I want to be mindful that there are probably dozens, if not more, of post-abortive women and men. And I just want you to know I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for sharing, hopefully, your story. If you haven't yet, I would encourage you to do that. There's also women that have lost children due to miscarriage and other things, and you know the beauty of life. And I just want to encourage women to share their stories. After college and after talking to my dad and figuring out, I really care about justice. I have a mercy bone, but my justice bone is really strong. I felt so drawn to this movement because I didn't want anybody to be in a position of vulnerability and not knowing that they would have support. I moved to DC. I got a chance to work at Fox News for a little bit. I interned there. I worked in nonprofits, continued doing that, all for great organizations that fight to end abortion in different ways. Concerned Women for America has an amazing program where they are equipping college students to speak up on campus. My boss there was one of the few females in DC really staying focused on abortion in front of legislators, holding their toes to the fire. I then went to Alliance Defending Freedom. Some of you guys know they're the big brother of the Christian legal world, and we got to defend some amazing pro-life advocates who are just, sidewalk counselors. They fight the buffer zone laws, the bubble zones that you guys know keep pro-lifers from the clinics. They defend students. I've really gotten a chance to work in a cool realm and see the amazing vastness of the pro-life movement and also what we're up against. The pro-abortion movement, and I say pro-abortion intentionally because they are not pro-choice. They are pro-abortion. If they were pro-choice, they would not limit Live Action and other pro-life organizations' ability to talk about abortion pill reversal. And I have the honor to sit with Dr. Harrison and his wife, who helped with that technology, the opportunity to reverse an early abortion through a progesterone injection. or pill. Nope. Big tech right now is not letting Live Action and others do any sort of promotion of that life-saving technology. If they were pro-choice, they would say, sure, let the woman make a choice, right? We've seen Planned Parenthood work in cahoots with Facebook, Twitter, YouTube to ensure that pro-life organizations' voices are limited. I know it's hard, guys, because we all have that friend that yells suppression on Facebook all the time. And you're like, no, it's just your content's really weird, so we're not liking it. You're not being suppressed, I promise. But I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen Twitter emails saying, no, we are not going to allow you to promote your pro-life messaging because you talk about defunding Planned Parenthood, because you show ultrasounds, because you talk about the David Delayden Center for Medical Progress videos. I've seen it, and it's happening in the movement in a big way. The pro-abortion movement also has a lot of funding, thanks to us, sadly, as our taxpayer dollars go to them. You guys know this. Their tax dollars have continued to increase and increase no matter who's in office, and they use that to market to me, to these amazing MiraVia girls, to your friends and family, to your daughters, that they will be there for you, no questions asked. And what the pro-life movement is up against is an education campaign, right? And then a support campaign. We know, we've looked at post-abortive women and talked to them and interviewed them, and I've gotten a chance to speak with some of them privately. And every single one says that if one person had come alongside them and said, you can do this, they would have chosen life. And so I want to put that on you today. Maybe you're a woman here, or you have a daughter, and imagine finding yourself in an unplanned pregnancy. Go back to college. Go back to dating. Imagine that moment of fear. What would it have taken for you to choose life? I've thought about this often because I want to stay soft. I don't want to get hard. I don't want to get mean. I don't want my justice bone to get so strong that I lose my mercy bone. And I thought, for me, even though I'm happily married now and I have a little one, that wasn't always the case. In order to choose life, I would have needed one person to come alongside me, take me by the shoulders, and say, Allison, can you do 9 months so someone else can have 90 years? Can you do that? What are you afraid of, babe? Okay, you're afraid of people making fun of you? Okay, guess what? You're a female. They're going to make fun of you for some reason. You're afraid of the shame, the embarrassment? We're actually going to throw you an epic baby shower, and it's going to be amazing. Are you afraid of your parents' reaction? Okay, let's go tell them together. They're gonna be a little freaked out, but wait till you see the look on their eyes when they meet your kid. You're gonna have free babysitters for life. I would have needed someone to really walk me off that ledge of fear, right? And we know that if we can get a woman past that early moment of shock and awe, and you can ignite that glimmer of hope, she'll choose life. I have a friend named Alexa, and she's up in Chicago, and she talks about an unplanned pregnancy. She was not by any means, low income or uneducated. She was working in finance in Chicago, but she wasn't ready for a baby. She wasn't married, and she said that the women in her life, some of her friends were saying, well, what are you going to do? But one guy, a guy friend of hers, said, Alexa, this is amazing. You're going to be the best mom. Look how beautiful you are. This is so great. And it allowed her to feel excited. And she talks about that because, well, yes, I care about women and I want us to share our stories and support each other. I want to remind the men in the room that we need you. We need you so badly. Your daughters need you. Your friends need you. You know your wives need you. But it always moved me that she said it was a man, a friend, a guy friend, who allowed her to feel excited and kind of caught that glimmer of hope that she had, that maybe I can do this. Between meeting Alexa and seeing her little one now and all these other amazing women, I know that the pro-life movement, we're gonna beat this. It's because of people like you and pro-lifers across the country who are pretty fed up with being a part of this movement, this pro-abortion narrative and movement, that I know we're gonna save lives. I told you I got to go down to the residence today and meet some of these amazing girls and their babies. And if you guys get a chance to tour, it would be great for you to go. These girls are so warm, having so much fun, supporting each other in this moment, and it's a little slice of heaven, because it's not often that college girls are nice to each other, right? Tough times. And it's not often that you get to see women going through this early pregnancy and then early parenthood together. And I really want to thank you guys for your support of the ministry, because without you, that doesn't get to happen. It doesn't continue. So, I will say this. I want to drop some stats on you and a couple newsy events that are happening, because I want you to be aware of what could happen in the next year and why MiraVia is incredibly important and the model of supporting women. So 2021 was a big year. If you guys remember, well, obviously you're like, yeah, I know. In terms of abortion, 561 pro-life laws were passed in the year 2021. So much so that Guttmacher, which is Planned Parenthood's former research arm, called it devastating. The headline was, 2021 is on track to become the most devastating anti-abortion legislative session in decades. Can we give a round of applause for that? A good rule of thumb is if Planned Parenthood and Guttmacher are devastated, you're happy. That's good. So they see this happening. They see individuals like you building relationships with their local representatives, working on very basic pro-life protections, things like informed consent, things like ultrasound waiting periods, that we want to make sure you see this ultrasound and have some time to reflect before you're making your decision. Pro-life laws that I really care about are also things like anti-discrimination. You guys, right now in our country, you can get an abortion for any reason, at any time, and it's protected by a Supreme Court case called Doe v. Bolton, which said any physical or psychological reason, you can get an abortion. And right now, you can abort your child because they're a girl, because they're a boy, because they're Black, because they're Asian, because they have Down syndrome or a disability, a cleft lip. That's how crazy our abortion laws are, that we aren't even able to say, stop sex discrimination. We can't get that passed. You know why? Because of Roe v. Wade. Because of this trifecta at the Supreme Court of Roe v. Wade, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, and Doe v. Bolton. And you either know those or you can look them up, but essentially it has created a perfect storm where no one is protected in the United States if you're still in the womb. You don't get the same legal protections. In fact, I was just at an event with a sweet girl with Down syndrome, and they reminded us that 9 out of 10 children with Down syndrome are aborted in utero. And so we're eliminating people groups now because we decide they're not as favorable as the rest. Though I would bet Chloe and a lot of other Down syndrome kids are much nicer than me and half of the people in this room. They are angels on this earth, and I do not want to see them exterminated because of abortion. We have 561 pro-life laws passed in the states. One of those is in Mississippi. You guys familiar with Mississippi's 15-week law? Okay. Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. I want you guys to remember this. This is Mississippi's 15-week protection. They're saying no abortions after 15 weeks. It's heading to the Supreme Court. They hear this on December 1st. This case could potentially overturn Roe v. Wade. What it is asking the court is whether states can make laws to protect children before viability. As you guys know, viability when Roe v. Wade was passed was looking much different than it is now. In the video of Olivia, you saw a child between, we fight hard for 20, 21 weeks. That's the youngest preemie that's survived. But during Roe v. Wade, it was 24, 25, 26 weeks is viability. This is an ever-changing line. And so I invite you to join me in prayer for our justices, for a woman named Amy Coney Barrett, who has a lot on her mind right now. And if the court does the right thing and reconsiders Roe and gives power back to the states, we are going to see those pro-life laws go through. And we're going to see a need for women who are choosing life now to have support systems and friends, diapers, childcare, help with education, professional counseling. That's going to be the future. I want to invite you guys to envision a world that's different. A world where you don't turn the news on and see a women's march full of angry people yelling and screaming about abortion. You see a women's march that's marching toward together, women on the left and women on the right, towards ending things like sex trafficking, ending things like child slavery, working together to ensure our employers are continually getting creative about how to look out for moms and dads and families. There's so much good work to be done, but right now, all of the attention is on abortion. You guys sense this? March for Life comes up and we go and you see hundreds of thousands march because this is what matters so much to so many. I envision a world where I'm 90 years old and I'm sitting at a dining room table with my kids and my grandkids, and the topic of abortion comes up and they go, "Grandma, did that really happen?" And in the same way where you and I sit and we go, "Slavery, did that really happen? People really treated each other that way?" Or maybe we think about it with the Holocaust, right? We go, "How did that happen? People were that mean to each other?" It's a distant memory. That's the world I want. I want us to sit around our dinner tables and be so old, and we'll be on the front porch, and our grandchildren are confused at the idea that someone would brutally end the life of their child under the name of empowerment. That they would go, "No, well, since I was born, now all I see is women, advocating for the ability to mom and parent and work and do whatever they want to do. I thought you could do it all." We never told guys to do that, right? We don't tell guys to pit themselves against their children in order to succeed. That's the world I want, and that world will only come if we ensure that we are the hands and feet of Christ to those in need, that we are the feet in front of these abortion clinics, that we are the funds for women that need it, for ministries that we believe in and trust. And in a room of this size, guys, I told you at the beginning that I love my dad and I love my mom, but I like meeting all of you and seeing your faces because I think someone like you helped me. I was 8 years old, and I remember rummaging through my dad's F-150, center console, probably looking for snacks, and finding this little black and white picture. And it was two grumpy-looking people holding a baby. And I mean, it was tiny. And I run inside and I go, "Dad, who's this?" He goes, "That's my mom and dad." That's me. I'm the baby. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, why have I never met them? And he sits me down and he says, Allie, listen. When I was a baby, something happened. My dad left, and my mom left me in a hotel room. I was an orphan kid in Philadelphia, and thankfully, one of the hotel staffers found my dad in the hotel room and tried to connect to the mom and couldn't get through, and then connected to his grandmother who couldn't take him. And so my dad was raised by the amazing Catholic Brothers of Charity in Philadelphia. And I am sure that he put the fun and dysfunctional running around Philadelphia with no parents and no college education. But I remember being 8 and just so sad. And I thought, but Dad, don't you want to meet them? Should we look for them? And he goes, no, I have my own family now. You guys are my family. And I think about that sometimes, when people ask, like, who do you want to meet one day in heaven? Or if you could have dinner with anybody dead or alive, who do you want to have dinner with? And I would love to meet my dad's mom, because it was 1960. I don't know what happened, but she chose to bring him to term, and she also chose to leave him somewhere that he would be found. And I never thought about it that way until a Mother's Day service where my family was invited to, my dad was really asked to speak, and my mom and I sat there, and he said to all these inner city kids, he said, I'm from Jersey, I didn't mention that, hopefully you can't tell, but if you're doing some inner city in Jersey, you kind of got to get right to the point. And he said, listen, it's Mother's Day, and I don't care if when I ask you about your mom, you get a warm, fuzzy feeling or a pit in your stomach. But you can thank your mom for choosing life and bringing you into this world, because she didn't have to. And he said, that's the only thing I can thank my mom for. And I do thank her for choosing life and leaving me somewhere I would be found, because she didn't have to. And in that moment, I knew that there was someone like you guys, who came alongside her. And I don't know if it was in a grocery store or what, but I know she needed encouragement. I know she needed someone to say, congratulations, how far along are you? Not, well, what are you going to do? I'll support you whatever you decide. That's the last thing a woman wants to hear. So teach your kids that now. I'm kind of sharing that with my sisters and the next generation of young men especially. I'll support you whatever you decide is the last thing someone wants to hear or should hear. Even if they want to hear it, that's not what you should be saying. You need to encourage them and advocate for them. I know someone did that for my grandmother, because she was a strong enough woman in the 60s to carry this child to term in what may have been a scary relationship, and I'm so grateful for that. So in this next year, no matter what happens at the Supreme Court, if Roe v. Wade is overturned and we get to protect these children, wonderful. Go full speed. But even if the court doesn't go the way we want, our mission continues. We are called to make disciples, and in order to make disciples, they need to be born, right? We are called to love one another, to take care of the widow and the orphan, two vulnerable demographics that we can tackle in this moment. If a girl is in an unplanned pregnancy, the guy leaves, we have this child, we can fulfill these commandments just by being present in ministries like this, in our community, and making sure, especially guys, that our family and our friends know we are safe to come to with this. So, all that said, I just want to thank you tonight for having me, for encouraging young women, to step into what God has called them to be, and no matter what season that is. I cherish your prayers for the next generation that is getting an onslaught of pro-abortion messaging, and that we would uphold and elevate the voices of girls like those who sit in the back and tend to the babies and those beautiful little voices, that we would create a society that embraces them all. So thank you so much.